For the loyal followers who follow Patrick and have been living under a rock, you may not have known that this past weekend in their win over the North Queensland Cowboys, James Tedesco notched up his 200th NRL appearance, and I think it got many of us, or at least me, asking the question about what exactly is James Tedesco's legacy. It's actually mental to sit back and think about how much this man has achieved at two clubs in only 200 appearances, especially considering him up against some of the greats in our game. Now, I do know it's hard to sit here in the present and talk up a player because nostalgia favors almost not just everyone, but everything. But I think when many of us started saying that James Tedesco is undoubtedly the best ever fullback for the New South Wales Blues, I think we were sort of scared to put up the argument for him when we compare him to some of the greats in that fullback position for the backlash. But your boy is here and I've done the numbers, and I just want to talk about what exactly is James Tedesco's legacy, because while it may seem mental to some before watching this video, if I had to predict, I think there's a real good argument to be made that he will overtake Billy Slater as the greatest fullback of all time. But before you smash that dislike comment and go mental, please watch the video and then leave your thoughts in that comment section below. Obviously, smash that like button if you do enjoy the video. And if you are new here, please consider subscribing. You can always change your mind later, and it's bloody free. And who doesn't love the best things in life that are free? Shout out to Freeview. But let's get straight into the video. Now, some people may not like the way I'm going to start off this because stats do only tell some of the story, but like I said, a lot of people don't like it when you compare players in the present to those of the past, because there's always going to be a bias to those players in the past for a nostalgia purpose. So to make the argument I'm going to make, I want to talk stats first. Now, there are a few things I have to say. Now, we're gonna get personal. In my opinion, James Tedesco is one of the top 6 fullbacks of the NRL era, so since 1998. And we're mainly going to be comparing him to Slater and Inglis, who I think many would say, including myself, are 1 and 2 for fullbacks in the NRL era. Slater, probably undoubtedly the best fullback, and Greg Inglis, probably the best outside back. Now, the other 3 I have included are Darius Boyd, Jared Hayne, and Brett Stewart. Boyd had the longevity, while Stewart and Hayne, at their heyday, people considered to be better than Slater. So we're going to go through some of these stats and compare Tedesco to some of these greats. Now, let's get started with the simple one. We are in the business of winning premierships. James Tedesco, in his first 200 appearances, and this is the part where I say that Teddy has played the least number of games out of any of these 6. So he is already tied with Slater, Boyd, and the Snake for the most premierships. Teddy obviously winning back-to-back with the Roosters. Slater won in 2012 and 2017. Inglis won with the Rabbitohs in 2014. No, because while some people may not like it, I'm not going to count the salary cap scandals, because there is no way that team deserves to win the premiership. That's a different video. But in saying that, I've also not giving Brett Stewart a 3rd premiership and Jared Hayne a premiership. Boyd won 2 with the Broncos and the Dragons. Hayne unfortunately didn't win a single premiership, and Brett Stewart won 2 in 2008 and 2011. So a lot of people will make the argument that Tedesco had one of the best all-time teams, and that is a very good point to make. I think the 2017 Storm side and the 2008 Manly side would probably be the better teams on this list to Tedesco's teams, but at the end of the day, I think a Rabbitohs fan will say that 2014 team could win a game against any team on this list, so we're not going to spend too much time in that. But I just want to point out that Tedesco has already tied for the most premierships with these boys, and certainly has a long way to go, especially considering the Roosters squad at the moment. Now, I want to move on to Dally M medals. Now, Tedesco, Slater, and Hayne all won a Dally M medal, but we're going to be using total. So, Representative Player of the Years, Fullback of the Years, we're combining them all. So, Tedesco is actually already tied with Slater and Inglis for 6 total Dally M medals. Hayne is out of this world with 9 because of that 2014 Origin series where he just picked them all up. And then Boyd and Brett Stewart already won 1. So outside of Hayne being a massive outlier, Tedesco has already won the same amount as Slater and Inglis, and I'm not going to rule out that he can't get that Dally M Fullback of the Year, which would take him to second most. And let's face it, Tedesco's still got a few more years at his prime. There is still a long way to go for James Tedesco. Now let's get into some of the individual stats. We touched on the premierships, we touched on the individual awards. Let's get into the meat. Tries per match. Now we're obviously going to be looking at averages, because obviously Tedesco has the least number of games, and we are putting this into context, so we're going to be using good old averages. So for tries, probably the most important statistic of them all, because that is what gets the rugby league football points. Now this is where Teddy struggles. He has the second least, however he is very close to Inglis and Hayne. Slater is second, and Brett Stewart, who is only just above Alex Johnson at the moment, has not by far, but has about 0.73 tries per match, while Slater, Inglis, Teddy, and Hayne all around about that 0.55 range. Now, unfortunately, Boyd's stats, who were the only ones I could find out of him, Stewart, and Hayne, didn't stack up. So let's compare Tedesco to Inglis and Billy Slater. Try assists. Now, it is amazing to me that Tedesco is number 1. Why? Because when we think Slater, we think of him as a much better ball player for a longer period of time. Tedesco started as a running fullback, and Greg Inglis played a couple seasons in the number 6 jersey, which is second to the halfback when it comes to playmaking. And Tedesco is number 1 with almost 0.6 try assists per match. And that's at the Tigers. Like I said earlier, it's hard to compare the premiership winning teams and, who has a better team, who had to carry their team more. But Tedesco played some of these seasons with the West Tigers. And unfortunately, I don't want to rip on Tigers fans too much, but we all know how poor they have been for the better part of the past decade. And for Tedesco, his stint at the Tigers, they were never a good side. While Slater and Inglis both played in that salary cap side, and I haven't taken their stats out. And I know there's all these jokes about the Roosters salary cap, and it's probably true. Uncle Nick, he loves a brown paper bag, or allegedly. But Tedesco nearly averages 0.6 try assists per match. That just proves how much he has done. He was the best running fullback in the comp, and now you'd have to argue he's one of the best ball-playing fullbacks because of what Trent Robinson has taught him. Now, let's get into another pretty important statistic. And when I thought average running meters, I thought Inglis would run away with it. But James Tedesco, nearly 150 career average running meters. If you just include the Roosters, it is over 200, but we can't do that. But isn't that incredible? Inglis is also incredible because he did have a stint at 5'8", but Tedesco is once again number 1 on this list. And the final statistic I have included is line breaks, where Inglis is number 1, Tedesco is number 2, and Slater is number 3. Now, the reason I wanted to show these statistics is because there's a common denominator in all of them. When we compare Tedesco to the fullbacks I've just said, even the ones from the earlier statistics, you probably just assume that he's at the bottom because he is playing right now. but he is never last. In fact, he's always at least tied first or second. The lowest he ever is second last for tries per match, which he was on one of the worst teams ever against, sorry, West Tigers fans. So that just puts those statistics just put into perspective how good Tedesco already is. If Tedesco wins one more premiership, which, look, with that Roosters side this year, they could probably do. And if you add Brendan Smith to that next year, with a season more under Sam Walker's belt, and with Angus Crichton re-signing, you're telling me Tedesco's not going to win another premiership, which would put him first. He's got a couple seasons to win a Dally M medal. And I think what puts Tedesco in perspective the most is that we're calling him the best player in the world before we saw Cameron Smith retire. We've seen Nathan Cleary's rise. Ryan Papenhuyzen had one of the best starts to a season ever. And Tom Trbojevic last year produced, probably, in my opinion at least, the greatest season of all time. And yet, Tedesco was always probably seen unanimously as the best player in the game due to his consistency and longevity. So if you're just looking at statistics, and some of these are averages, I get that, but you Ty Slater, if he can get to 316 games, or if he get to 300, he's not going to be outright first in nearly every single one of these categories. I think the only one that stops him, we won't get to first of, is probably tries, because of how much strike power and how much of a playmaker he has become. But I really just wanted to get you guys aware of what we are seeing, because James Tedesco is a beast, and I know we can't measure defense, and I think that's where Slater shined as a fullback. He completely reinvented the way the fullback position is played, and I get that, but that doesn't make him the best. It's the same reason why, unfortunately, while Lockyer is seen as one of the GOATs, he's probably not the GOAT for a lot of people, because while he was the only player ever to probably be best in his position at two positions, just because you reinvent and do something first doesn't mean you're going to be the best at it forever. Tedesco still has, 100 games, 4 more seasons. I think he really has that in him too. I still think we've got another 2-3 years of consistent elite James Tedesco. And at Origin, I guess, is the big discrepancy, but Teddy's proven that. There's a reason at the beginning of the video I said he's undoubtedly New South Wales' best ever fullback. He's proven that for a number of series now. And while Slater and Inglis were part of that dynasty, well, guess what? Teddy's the only one out of those 3 blokes to win an Origin series as a captain. So I'd just like to throw that in the arena to counter the whole dynasty argument, and I totally get that, but Tedesco is probably the greatest Origin player in the 2020s, at least so far, if not since 2018. I mean, him, Inglis, and Slater have all won 1 Wally Lewis medal each, and Tedesco probably should have won Slater's. I think even Queenslanders would admit that. So that's why I said if I had to make a prediction, I think he will go down as the best ever fullback. Like, we love to look at premierships in the same way we view MJ beating LeBron in terms of rings, and he's already tied for number 1 in that. It's why I think Smith's the GOAT, because he just won. And since Smith, and while Cleary's doing that at the moment, Tedesco is just winning. So let's see what happens in the next few years. The only thing that's really going to stop Tedesco is Joseph Suaalii, because, oh my god, that dude is younger than me, and he is killing it, and I am no way inside that is happening. But guys, there you go. I want to ask the question, what is James Tedesco's legacy? Where do you think he ranks now in terms of fullbacks? And where do you think he ends up? Leave all that in that comment section below. Smash that like button if you enjoyed. Subscribe if you haven't already. It is completely free. If you're a returning viewer, then thank you so much. And of course, I'll see you guys in the next one.